All right, Jabosai, good morning. Let us begin. Sorry for the couple-minute delay. I apologize. Also, we don't have a microphone today, so in Mirz Hashem, I will do my best to project. Let's begin by thanking our sponsors. To thank our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Teves, Yoel Sara Kelman, in honor of the birth of their daughter Oriya Tahel, and in hope that all the couples davening for children will, Mirz Hashem, soon have their tefilos answered. Steve and Teri Czinn, in honor of their grandchildren Adin, Tzvi, and Naftali, Moshe, and Shirley Elbaum Family, in commemoration of the yahrzeit of Shirley's husband, Gerald Elbaum, Yaakov Kopel, Ben R Avraham Menachem. We also take the opportunity to wish a very special mazel tov to Jeremy and Rachel Lassen on the birth of a baby girl. Mazel tov. And we thank Moshe and Chavi Abramson for dedicating the shir in honor of little baby girl Lassen. We hope that in Mirz Hashem she will grow to become an incredible Bas Yisrael, and her parents will be zocha to be machnis her LeTorah, LeChuppah, u'lemaisim tovim. Mazel tov, incredible. All right, so with that, let us begin. Today's daf is Chav Tes 28. Today's daf is Chav Ches. 28. Baruch Hashem. Did I put the right thing on here? Yeah. Yeah, I did. Okay, good. Sorry. So today's daf is Chav Ches 28. We are picking up on Chav Zayin with base 27b. Let's just pick up once again from the beginning of the wide lines. We got a little bit into it already, but let's just start. It'll go quickly. Tanur Rabbanan. Anshe Mishmar hayu mispalin al karban hachem sheyiskabel beratzon. The people of the Mishmar would go ahead and remember again, we pointed out, the Gemara is using a lot of words. I know I don't have a microphone today. I'm sorry. So I just work here. So I'm sorry. Yeah, no, right. So Shabbos starts early, so they took over the microphone early. So tonight, Anshe Mishmar, so we'll say, remember again, by the way, we'll say, if you can't, also feel free to move up. And there's still space over here in the front as well. I'm sorry, I'll do my best. So maybe we should just buy a microphone. Let's buy a microphone. Good. Bidding will start at. So again, so Tanur Anshe Mishmar hayu mispalin al karban hachem sheyiskabel beratzon. So we'll say, remember again, the Gemara is using the lashon of Mishmar and Maimad. So just for our purposes, Mishmar is going to refer to the people who are gathered in Yerushalayim. Maimad is going to refer to the Yisraelim who are gathered in their local cities, in Yericho, as we've discussed. So the people of the Mishmar would daven al karban hachem sheyiskabel beratzon. So the people of the Mishmar, they would daven that the karbanos should be accepted. Anshe Maimad miskantzna beis hakneses yoshin dalet tanios b'sheni b'shabbos b'shlishi b'revi'i b'chamishi. So again, the people of the Maimad, they would gather in their respective cities, and there they would go ahead and they would fast. They would fast 4 days out of the week: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, as we discussed. No fasting Friday, no fasting Sunday. So the Gemara says something amazing. They would daven for different things on different days of the week. B'sheni al yardi hayam. On Mondays, they would daven for the sea travelers. They would daven that those traveling by sea should, Mirz Hashem, be healthy, be whole, and be unharmed. Rashi says, why would they daven on Monday for sea travelers? Tichsiv b'sheni yihirakia b'soch hamayim. Because on the second day, remember again, the Ma'amados, their entire service is directly related and connected to Maaseh Bereishis, to the Genesis narrative. So on Monday, what does it say? The second day of creation, the sky will be within the Rakia will be b'soch hamayim. We spoke of this before. Interestingly enough, the entire essence of the Rakia was to divide between the Mayim Alyon and the Mayim Tachtonim, the upper waters and the lower waters. So really, again, the creation of the Rakia is a lot about water, and therefore on Monday, the second day of creation, the Rakia, they would go ahead and daven for the sea travelers. B'shlishi, on Tuesday, al holchei midbaros. They would daven for the welfare of those who traveled the deserts. What's the connection? Look at Rashi. The Torah says that on the third day of creation, the waters were withdrawn and the land became visible. So they would therefore daven for the benefit of those traveling by land, traveling on the desert. Berevi'i al askira shalotipa alatinokos. On Wednesday, the fourth day of creation, they would daven that askara, which was a disease. We've spoken about askara many times. It's some type of disease where the throat constricts and chas v'shalom, a person goes ahead and suffocates. So on Wednesdays they daven that askara should not negatively impact babies, children. You will say, what's the connection here? This is incredible. If you look at Rashi says, "B'Revi'ah la'askara shebo nitlu hama'oros." What happened on Wednesday? On Wednesday, the sun, the moon, and the stars were established. Uksiv bei yihi ma'oros me'eros ksiv. I will say, the Torah says, let there be ma'oros, luminaries. Ma'oros is written chaser, right? It's written deficient. So the way it's written without a vav. Therefore, it looks like the word me'eros. Me'era means a curse. Means a curse. So therefore, on Wednesday, they would daven that this curse, that this askara, should not chas v'shalom go ahead and should not chas v'shalom afflict the children. Now I will say, if you have in your Gemara, the Hagos v'tziyunim, hopefully you have that in your Gemara, the bottom left-hand side, I think it appears different places, different Gemaras, but it's on the bottom, you'll see there's a little footnote there, ches. So Rashi says over here, he quotes Rashi, because he quotes over the Yerushalmi. And the Yerushalmi says, Chasra me'era k'dei shelo tipa me'era al tinokos. Say, Inami, so first of all, Rashi is quoting the Yerushalmi. Inami, kevan da askara ba al yedei lashon hara. Listen to this. So the Gemara elsewhere equates the sickness of askara with lashon hara. There's a midah keneged midah. Lashon hara is abuse of one's language. Askara, the constricting of the throat, unfortunately, over time, takes away from a person's ability to speak. So listen to this. Lashon hara is avid biyom dalid. They both say, what is the first recorded case of Lashon Hara? This is incredible. The first recorded case of Lashon Hara was on Wednesday, the Wednesday of creation. What happened on the Wednesday of creation? Shenivru ha'ma'oros va'amra ha'levana l'fnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu i'efshar lebeis melachim l'shtamish bekeser achos. So both say, this is incredible. So he says over here that the first recorded instance of Lashon Hara was when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the sun and the moon. And the moon said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, two kings can't share the same crown. And what does Chosh Baruch Hu say? Lech umi'et es atzmei. Good, you're right. You know what, you're right. Go and diminish yourself. So the sun remains the primary luminary, and the moon becomes the secondary luminary. V'hainu lashon hara v'hilchach ikol hamechash la'askara u'mispal lena shelo tavo. So why do we daven that askara ultimately shouldn't occur on Wednesday? Because askara is related to lashon hara, right? And the first instance of lashon hara ultimately again was on Wednesday. They will say what's dramatic about this is what? Is first of all, again, it's a totally new dimension of understanding Lashon Hara. We'll say, when you look at what the moon said, would you categorize that as Lashon Hara? Lashon Hara? No. In fact, again, by the way, the Ribbon Shalom doesn't reject the position of the moon. He says to the moon, you're right. Right? We'll say, in a leadership model, shared leadership doesn't work. There's gotta be a final decision maker. Right? There has to be someone who is vested with the authority at the end of the day to say yes or no. You can be collaborative as much as you want, but there's got to be a Yoshev Rosh. So what the moon is saying is not incorrect, yet it's fascinating to see that the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu viewed it was as Lashon Hara, because implicit in those words of the moon was something negative about the sun. So you see just an incredibly scary dynamic of Lashon Hara, that even if you actually don't say anything that is actively negative about someone or something else, but something negative can be inferred, that's also Lashon Hara. Dramatic. Back to the Gemara. Ube'erev Shabbos, lo hayu, b'chamishi, on Thursday, what would they daven for? Ala ubros umeinikos. They would daven for the pregnant women and for the nursing women. Ubros shelo yapilu. So ubros ultimately are the pregnant women that they shouldn't miscarry. Meinikos shianikos b'neim, and the nursing women that they should be able to nurse their child. What does this have to do with Thursday? Rashi says over here, Al ubros tichsiv bei yishritzu hamayim sheretz nefesh chaya. So supposed to listen to this because what does it say on Thursday? On Thursday it says the sea creatures should procreate. That's for the ubros, and ultimately, again, the Meiniko, same idea. Both say this is fascinating. You're saying to yourself, what? Where does this tefillah belong? Where does this tefillah really belong? On Friday. On Friday, the creation of man. But remember again, it doesn't happen on Friday. Why not? Why not? No ma'amados on Friday. No ma'amados on Friday. So on Thursday, they would daven for the pregnant and for the nursing women. Incredible. So the Gemara says as follows. I will say, by the way, I saw brought down, Ben Yoda brings down, that even presently today, in the absence of the ma'amados, there's an inyan that each of these days has a skula to daven for each of these things, which is really quite amazing. In other words, embedded in the natural order of the world is that there are certain days that you could daven for anything any day, but there are certain days where it's a bit more ripe to daven ultimately again for something. So again, we see that Mondays are for the sea travelers, and Tuesdays are for the desert, the land travelers, and Wednesday is for the health of our children, and Thursday is ultimately again for pregnancy and for nursing. So it's just fascinating to see. There was no fast on Friday. Als covered Shabbos. Als covered Shabbos. Kavachom b'Shabbos atzmo. So too on Shabbos itself. No fasting on Shabbos. Be'echer b'Shabbos my Tavabosa. Get ready for this. This is wild. Why don't we fast on Sundays? Why don't we fast on Sundays? So the Gemara says, Rabbi Yochanan, notzrim. Rabbi Yochanan says, because of notzrim. Now the truth is, we generally translate notzrim as how? Christians. The Rishonim go a little, the Mefarshim go a little bit crazy on this because I will say when there were Ma'amados, there weren't Christians going ahead and breathing down our back. So it doesn't, historically, it's difficult to understand what this is referring to. That's why many take out Notzrim and they say Bavliim. They say Bavliim, that there were times of Gentile occupation. And again, the reason it works with Christians is because Sunday, right? Sunday is the Christian Sabbath. So if Jews start fasting on the Christian Sabbath, so ultimately again the Christians might get offended. But again, we don't have time to get into it now, but historically, many feel that the placement of Christians over here just seems to be out of place. So we'll say also understand that by the rise of Christianity already, the temple service is long gone. Remember again, I will say, think about this for just a moment. The second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed by the Romans, right? Rome was not a Christian empire at the time that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, right? Christianity becomes part of Rome much, much later on. So the intersection between Christianity and temple service historically doesn't really seem to be there. Again, something interesting to Ma'ayin. So whether it means Notzrim, whether it means Bavliim, it meant some type of, there was a period of Gentile occupation where fasting on Sunday would have been harmful to Jew-Gentile relations. So I will say, now watch this. There is another interpretation. Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani Omer, Mishum Shushlishi li Yitzira. This is incredible. Shmuel bar Nachmani says, what's Sunday, Rabbi Say? What's Sunday? Sunday is the third day from creation, right? We're created on Friday, Shabbos, Sunday. I will say in general, there's a concept that 3 days after any dramatic event, there's a weakness, right? Where do we learn this from? Where's the first instance we see this from? Right? Shimon and Levi and, Avram, that's the first one, Avram Avinu, right? And then Shimon, Levi, and Shechem. Right? So I will say, so listen to this. The Gemara understands already. This is incredible. Shmuel Nachmani says that by definition, I have to tell you, it's amazing. Sundays are just a more fatigued day. We'll say, anyone have this dynamic? I find it amazing. I'm more exhausted on Sunday, even though daf starts later, right? Davening starts later. It's generally a lighter schedule. So it's incredible. So Shlomo says Sunday is a more fatigued day. You ever wonder why Sunday is a more fatigued day? Especially for those of you who don't work on Shabbos, right? So in other words, right? So Sunday is a more fatigued day, right? So what? You just got that good, right? So what's the pshat? What's the pshat? Because at the end of the day, it's the third day from Yitzira. It's the third day from creation, where any time there's a dramatic event that occurs, 3 days out is when you really feel the effects. Now, what I will tell you is something amazing. I saw brought down that in fact, this is the way to understand the Notzrim. Rabbi Yochanan says Notzrim doesn't mean Christians, but rather, I forgot who I saw this in the name of, Rabbi Yochanan and Rosh Hashanah are saying the same thing. Rabbi Yochanan says we don't fast on Sunday because of Notzrim. Now we'll say, what's the shorish of Notzrim? Yotzer, creation. And then Rosh Hashanah says, what does he mean when he says Yotzrim? Mipnei shu shlishi liyitzira. Because it's the third day from creation. And ultimately, again, once it's the third day out, that's when you feel the impact of being reborn. Which Rabbosai tells you so many incredible things. Number one, the Kiviyachol, every Erev Shabbos there's a rebirth. Every Erev Shabbos, today is when HaKadosh Baruch Hu first created man. Each of us experiences a quasi-rebirth on Erev Shabbos. You ever wonder what the power of Erev Shabbos is? Erev Shabbos, this is one of the most incredible things. When we arrived in Eretz Yisrael, we arrived there on Thursday afternoon. On the ship. And I will say, there is nothing, today I always say this, the best part of Eretz Yisrael is Erev Shabbos. Comes Thursday night, there's a different feel. You go to the Kosel Erev Shabbos, you go to Thursday, you feel there's just something different in there. We don't have the same type of Erev Shabbos here in America or anywhere in Galus. You don't find it. What's the power of Erev Shabbos? The power of Erev Shabbos is that there's a rebirth. There's a rebirth. I am being reborn. V'haraya, the Gemara says, I'm fatigued on Sunday. Why am I fatigued on Sunday? Because literally I've been reborn. On both sides. Today, right? I know we might feel a little bit tired, but we've been reborn. Both sides, I've been reborn. My gosh, Chaparayim, I gotta take advantage of this. I have a brand new beginning. I have to go ahead and tap into this new energy. That's Aleph. Beis, I'll say, what do you see? This notion that I'm born on Friday, but I don't feel the effects until Sunday. What a Musar Haskell. Sometimes in life, we do things, and the implications or ramifications or effects of our actions are only felt until later. So often we make decisions, and we don't give it all that much thought because we don't see an immediate reaction. But for every action, there is a reaction. More often than not, it's delayed. But just because you don't see a reaction right now doesn't mean that what I did doesn't have an impact. And how careful we have to be with our decisions. Because we think if there's not an immediate impact, nothing's going to happen. It's not true. I'm born on Friday and don't feel the real impact of my birth until Sunday. What a metaphor for life. More often than not, when I make decisions, the impact is not felt until later on. Oh, but it's there. It's there. And how careful I have to be about the decisions that I make, because every decision has an impact. Every action has a reaction. Let's go right there. Says the Gemara. Incredible. So the Gemara says as follows. Good. No good. I know we have to get to today's daf. This is ridiculous. I will say, but again, this is overwhelming. Reish Lakish says, do you know why you don't fast on Sunday? Listen to this. Because of the Neshama Yisera. Now, both say the Neshama Yisera is on Shabbos, right? On Shabbos, I have an extra added dimension of spirituality. Dam Reish Lakish, Neshama Yisera nitna bo ba'adam be'erev Shabbos, u'b'matzei Shabbos not lino son. So we'll say, ultimately, again, I get Neshama Yisera, this extra added dimension of spirituality on erev Shabbos. And then when is it taken from me? Matzei Shabbos. So we'll say, Reish Lakish says, do you know why you don't fast on Sundays? Because I'm a bit tzibrachin, right? I'm sad. I'm compromised. We'll say, right, why do we smell besamim? Besamim are there in order to go ahead and gladden the neshama. The sense of smell is linked to the soul. Because my regular neshama is very sad about the departure of the neshama yisera, the extra added dimension of spirituality. So Reish Lakish says, I'm weakened. I'm in a more compromised state because the neshama yisera has left. After all, he says, Shene'emar shavas vayinafash. Kevan sheshavas. Once I finished Shabbos, vay of the nefesh. Oh, I've lost my nefesh. I've lost my neshama. It will say Shabbos comes. It will say, so you understand, by the way, the Friday Shabbos, what happens? Erev Shabbos, I'm reborn. Shabbos comes, I get the neshama yisir, an extra added dimension of spirituality, which tells me, by the way, that the two most powerful days of the week are Erev Shabbos and Shabbos Kodesh. Shabbos leaves, Shabbos, Vayinafash. Once I observe Shabbos, Vayinafash is a contraction. Oy, oy, of the nefesh. I've lost my additional neshama yisera. I've lost it. And I will say there's such an existential sense of pain and sadness and weakness that Reish Lakish says, we don't fast on Sundays. I will say, look at Rashi. Rashi says over here, look at Rashi. Neshama Yisera, this is wild. Rashi says, Shemarchivin daito lachila ushtia. This is so interesting. Rashi says, what does the Neshama Yisera do? Tell me. What's the power? I'd like to read the instructions and the fine print in Neshama Yisera. Right? I got it. What does it do? Rashi, I'm going to tell you. What Neshama Yisera does is, it goes ahead and allows you, Shemarchivin daito, it expands your ability to eat and drink. You're like, shkoyach, I knew it the whole time, right? Shabbos, I could drink so much more, Baruch Hashem, and I never knew what it was. I thought it was that I didn't have to go to work. Now I realize it's my Neshama Yisera. I eat more on Shabbos than I do. Well, say, that's Neshama Yisera? That's Neshama Yisera. You could eat more, you could drink more? That's it. Tell me like I could learn Zohar. Tell me like I could, explore the secrets of the universe. No, Neshama Yisera, you can eat more, drink more. We'll say, Elamai, what do you see? I will say, what's the highest level of Ruchnius? The highest level of spirituality is the ability to infuse spirituality into the physical and into the mundane. You see, that's the greatest step. To be spiritual, divorced from the physical, that's not a great accomplishment. That's easy. But the ability to take an act of eating and to turn it into an avodas Hashem, the ability to take a l'chaim and to turn it into an avodas Hashem, that is the pinnacle of spiritual accomplishment. And that is the Neshama Yisera. The power of the Neshama Yisera is that it allows you to infuse a dimension of spirituality into what would otherwise be physical, mundane things. The same things that I'm doing Sunday through Friday that often lack holiness. The Neshama Yisera has the ability to infuse holiness. So I will say the pinnacle of human accomplishment is to infuse spirituality and holiness into the physical and into the mundane. Incredible. Let's go back there. Says the Yom Rishon. So now we're going to go through the Torah reading of the Ma'amalos, right? So the Israelim are gathered in their respective cities, and they're going ahead and they're reading through Ma'aseh Bereishis. So says the Gemara Tana, Bereishis Bishnayim, Yehirakia Be'echad. They would read the section of Bereishis with two aliyos, and Yehirakia in one. Bishlam Yehirakia Be'echad Tlasa Psuki Havi. So I understand Yehirakia is one aliyah because it's 3 psukim. Ela Bereishis Bishnayim, my time, hey Psuki Havyon. I will say, but how can you read the section of Bereishis? How can you go ahead and read the second Bereishis with 2 aliyahs? At the end of the day, there's only 5 psukim. To which the Gemara says, "Utanana kori b'Torah al yifchos migimel psukim." I will say, that when you read from the Torah, you can one aliyah can never have less than 3 psukim. So how do you divide up the section of what we call Bereishis, which is only 5 psukim, between 2 aliyahs? No problem. Rav Amar Doleg. Rav says, not a problem. What do? We'll say Doleg literally means skip, but in this context, it means repeat. In other words, read 3 psukim for the first dola, right? And then go back and begin the second aliyah at the 3rd pasuk as well. So you'll make 5 psukim into 6 psukim. Shmuel Amar Posek, Shmuel says, no, just divide a pasuk into 2. Divide 1 pasuk into 2. So read 1, 2, and then take pasuk 3, divide it into 2. So half of 3 will be the 3rd pasuk for the first aliyah, and the second half of 3 will be the first pasuk for the second aliyah. Rav Amar Dolig, my time Elomar Posek. Rav, who says you repeat, why doesn't he say you split? Kasavra kol psuki de lo paska Moshe and lo paskinon le. We'll say because there is a klal. The klal is any pasuk that Moshe Rabbeinu did not split, we cannot split. I'll just tell you, there's an interesting, because it's Erev Shabbos, there's an interesting ramification of this. Some have the minhag on Shabbos day to only say, right, Kiddush on Shabbos day is only Hagafen. Right, Hagafen. We call the Kiddush Shabbos only Hagafen. Some say, Al Kim Beirach, right, Al Kim Beirach. Both say, the poskim bring down, there's a problem with just saying Al Kim Beirach. Why? It's a piece of a pasuk. The Aruch HaShulchan is matzdik. He finds justification for it. But again, I just want to point out that some say just Al Kim Beirach is a problem. So it's Kedai. You have a Neshama Yisera anyway, right? You have a few extra minutes. Say the whole Kiddush, right? There's just 2 paragraphs there. Right, but kedai not to just say al king birach. In any event, so the Gemara says as follows: Shmuel Amar Posek. Shmuel says you split a pasuk. Is that true? Umi paskinon. Do we split psukim? Rabbi Chanina kra sar gadol hayeli eitza Chanina gadol v'lo hitterli lifsok ela litinoko shabes rabban hoelu islami rasuyin. So let's listen to this. Does Shmuel really say that we split psukim? After all, we have this man Rabbi Chanina kra. Rabbi Chanina Kra means Rabbi Chanina, the teacher of reading, or the scribe. Right? Rabbi Chanina was an expert in reading, and what did he do with his expertise? He taught children how to read. He taught children how to read. So what happened? And Rabbi Chanina said, I wanted to split up the psukim for the children, and ultimately again, and I was only allowed to, v'lo hitterli, right? I'm sorry, this is Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Chanina Kra, he says, Rabbi Chanina Agadol gave me a big problem. I would only let me split it up because there was no other choice. It was the only way to go ahead and teach the children. So you see that splitting up psukim is not pashit. To which the Gemara says, Shmuel, hasam time amay mishum delo efshar, hachanay lo efshar. Shmuel says, you're right. We don't generally want you splitting up psukim, right? We only let you do it when there's no other option. So just like for the teaching of children, there was no other option. So too over here, in order to go ahead and make 5 psukim suitable for 2 olim, for 2 aliyos, you have to split a pasuk. Ushmuel amar posek, my time amar doleg. Shmuel, who says that you split a pasuk, why doesn't he just accept Rav's approach and just repeat a pasuk? Repeating seems to be so much easier than splitting. Both say this is incredible. They both say, some things don't change. Right? What are the things that don't change? There are always people who leave early, and there are always people who come late. So what Shmuel is concerned about is like this. If you repeat a pasuk and a guy leaves early from shul, and let's say he leaves after the first aliyah, he's going to leave after the first aliyah, the first Ola read 3, he's going to see what's left for the second aliyah. All he sees is what? 2 psukim. And he's going to erroneously understand that you could even do 2 psukim for an aliyah. He doesn't realize that they're going to start, right, a pasuk early for Ola number 2. Similarly, if a guy comes late, and he comes by the second Ola, and he sees that the second aliyah is starting the third pasuk in, he's going to think that the first Ola only read 2 psukim. So therefore, in order to avoid any type of erroneous understanding, Shmuel prefers to split a pasuk rather than to go ahead and repeat it. Meisvei. So let's analyze. Parsha shal shisha psukim karnosa b'shnayim. So if you have a section, a paragraph of 6 psukim, you could read it ultimately again with 2 aliyas. V'shal chamisha. And if you only have 5 psukim, harishon kore gimel, hasheni kore shnayim parsha zu, ve'akam parsha acheres. Both say, so what happens if you only have a section of 5 psukim? So ultimately again, read 3 psukim for the first ola, and for the second ola, read 2 psukim from this paragraph, and what? One from the next. The Yesh Omrim Gimel, and others say, no. Once you're starting a new paragraph, you have to read a minimum of 3 psukim from the new paragraph. So Gemara says, I don't understand. Why? We just said in Eitzah, if you only have a paragraph of 5 psukim, you can make that into 2 aliyas. How do you make it into 2 aliyas? According to Rav, repeat. According to Shmuel, according to Shmuel, split. So why does the Gemara say, no, if you only have 5 psukim, read 3 for the first ola, 2 for the second ola from this paragraph, and then read another couple of psukim for the next paragraph. To which the Gemara says, Shani Hassam, top of Chavches, the Islay Ravcha. It's different, Rabbi over here. Why? Because there's an Eitzah. See, Rabbi saying, remember, when you could go ahead, when you don't have to split or repeat, that's of course better. Everyone's going to agree that that's better. What's the problem over here by the Ma'amados? By the Ma'amados is we have some very specific psukim for each and every day. So you don't really have latitude to continue into the next paragraph. So because of that, that's when we have to get into skipping, or we have to get into ultimately again splitting. I will say we know that halacha l'maisa, we do run into these type of situations as well. And when we do, we paskin like Rav, we repeat psukim rather than split psukim. Okay, we'll say good. Daf of Chavches, Mazel Tov. Good. So we'll say says the Gemara. Parsha Gidola Korin so b'shnayim b'shachris u'b'musaf u'mincha Korin al pihen. So both sides. So the Gemara says as follows. So remember, Ibailahu Heichi Kamar. What is the Gemara? What was the Mishnah saying? B'shachris u'b'musaf Korin so b'sever mincha Korin al peh. Both sides. Is the Mishnah saying that halacha l'maisa shachris and musaf we read it from the Torah, and by mincha, we read it Baal Peh, read it by heart, the Torah reading. So the Gemara says, Kekorin Shema Odilma Hachi Katana. This is what it means to say. B'Shachris Korin Osa B'Sefer Ubemusaf Ubemincha Korin Osa Al Peh. Or maybe it means like this. Shachris, we read it from a sefer, but already by Musaf and Mincha, we read it Baal Peh. Also, remember again, we're referring to the section of the Ma'amados, right? The Ma'amados are reading different pieces of Maaseh Bereishis each and every day. We're just unclear how to read the Mishnah. Are they reading it from the Torah, Shachris and Musaf, and then by Mincha they're reading it by heart? Or are they reading it Shachris from a Sefer, and by Musaf and Mincha reading it by heart? To which the Gemara says, Tashma, let's analyze. Disanya b'Shachris u'be Musaf nichnas on the Beis HaKnesses v'korin kideresh korin kol hashana. So also here the Bryce says a bit more explicit. By Shachris and Mincha, they come into shul by the Ma'amados, and they read from the Torah in the way we read from the Torah throughout the year. Uba mincha, but by mincha time, yachid kora osa al peh. By mincha, ultimately, again, individuals read it Baal Peh. Says Gemara, 1 second. Rabbi Yossi, v'chi yachid yachal likrosa divrei Torah al peh. Could b'tzibur, is that appropriate for an individual to read things Baal Peh in the context of a congregation? Ella, kulon nichnasin v'korin osa al peh, kikorin es shma. Rather, I will say what happens is as follows. Bottom line, halacha l'maisa, here's how the ma'amados work. They would gather in the morning, and in the morning and by Musaf, they would have two kriyos, right? Two kriyos. They would read again, Maaseh Bereishis by Shachris, Maaseh Bereishis by Musaf. And how would they do it? How would they do it? From a Sefer Torah. Then when they would gather again by Mincha, they would once again read the same section, but this time not with a Torah, but rather how would they read it? Together, but Baal Peh. So both say, so now we know how they split up the aliyos, right? Now we know how when they read it from Torah, when they read it Baal Peh. Beautiful. Kol yom sheyesh bo halal in bo maimad. So both say, remember again, the Mishnah said, any day which there we read halal, there is no maimad service. Says the Gemara, ma hefresh bein zeh lo zeh. What's the difference between this and that? Both say, in other words, the Gemara says, why is it? The Gemara, we didn't quote this, but the Gemara said when there is carbon eitzim pushes off the ma'amid, or I should say cancels the ma'amid of ne'ilah, but ultimately again not mincha. So we'll say, why is that? Ma hefresh bein zeh lo zeh halalu divrei Torah v'halalu divrei sofrim. We'll say this is fascinating because the Gemara says mincha is da'oraisa, ne'ilah is d'rabanan, which I will say is fascinating. What the Gemara is essentially saying is that the concept of mincha is biblical, right? Vayetze Yitzchak lasuach basada lifnos arev. But ultimately, again, ni'ilah is only d'rabanan. Therefore, again, when you're canceling the maimud service by carbon eitzim, we'll cancel the maimud of ni'ilah, but we're more reticent to cancel the maimud of mincha. Beautiful. Zman atzei kohanim va'am. Shabbos says the Gemara says Tanrabanan. Lama hutzruchu lomar zman atzei kohanim va'am. Shabbos say, what does it mean when it says? Remember, the other thing that cancels a maimud is what? Carbon eitzim. Carbon eitzim. So why does it say Zman eitzim hakohanim va'am? What's that lashon? So says the Gemara. Here we go. This is incredible. Amru kisha'alu b'nei hagola lo matzu eitzim b'lishka. Now we'll say we spoke about this yesterday. When the Jews came back, and they were rebuilding the Beis Hamikdash. And remember again, when many of the waves came back, they already found the Beis Hamikdash in a semi-state of construction. So what happened? They found there was no wood in the Lishkas HaEitzim. Remember again, I will say, remember from our days from Yuma, we had our image of the Beis Hamikdash. You walked into the Azar, you walked into the courtyard, and there were 4 major chambers. One of those chambers was called the Lishkas HaEitzim, the chamber of wood. Kishmo Keinhu. That's where they kept all of the wood. Remember again, what would happen in that chamber? That's where the Kohanim who were Ba'alei Mumin. Even if you were a Kohen, you were a Baal Mum, so you couldn't do the Avodah. What could you do? You could deworm wood. So that's where they worked, and that was Lishkas HaEitzim. So they found there was no wood in the Lishkas HaEitzim. Va'amdu elu, these particular families, there are 4 families that we mentioned yesterday. Va'amdu elu ve'hisnadvu mishalahem. So these families came along and they pledged, they donated wood to the Beis Hamikdash. V'chein hisnu neviim shebineim shafil lishka malei eitzim yu elu misnadu mishalam. And the neviim instituted that even if the chamber of wood is filled with wood, nevertheless, these individual families have the schus to go ahead and bring wood to the Beis Hamikdash. Ne'emar v'hagarolos hipam al carbon eitzim. HaKohanim, HaLevim, Va'am, V'havi Beis Elokeinu Lebeis Avosenu, Le'itim Mizumanim, Shana B'Shana Levaram Mizbeach Hashem Elokeinu K'Chasub HaTorah. Beautiful. So we'll say that's why it calls it Ha'itzim. So it calls it Zman Atze Kohanim Va'am. So ultimately, again, this is where the Kohanim worked. And ultimately, again, the Am refers to the 4 families who donated wood. Beautiful. V'imam Kohanim Levim V'chomi Tan Rabbanon. Mahayu B'nei Gon Ve'elis. So we'll say, so remember again, back in the Mishnah, the Mishnah also spoke about the following. The Mishnah said, "Ubnei gon ve'eli, ubnei kotze ketzios." So both say, so again, on the 15th of Av, there were a bunch of families who brought wood. Amongst those families were mentioned were Bnei Gon Ve'eli. How do you translate Bnei Gon Ve'eli? Literally, again, the sons of the pestle thieves. Not pestle like an idol. Pestle, P-E-S-T-L-E. Right? Like the thing that you go ahead and use to grind. Right? So ultimately, again, the sons of the pestle thieves, Ubnei Kotze Ketzios, and the sons of the fig harvesters. So who is that? So we'll say, get ready for this story. This is incredible. Tan Rabbanon, Mahayu b'nei gon ve'eli u'b'nei kotze ketzios. Get ready for this. We'll say, first white line, Chav Ches Samad Aleph. Amru, Pam achas gazra hamalchus gezira al Yisrael, shalo yavi eitzim l'ma'aracha, v'shalo yaviu bikurim l'Yerushalayim, v'oshivu pruzdos al hadrachim. So we'll say, one time the government decreed, Gentile government decreed, the Malchus decreed, that you're not allowed to bring bikurim. Well, the truth is, they say you're not allowed to bring wood for the Mizbeach, and you're not allowed to bring bikurim, first fruits. We'll get to the wood in just a moment. Give me first. And what did they do? They posted sentries. On the roads. Kederech shahoshiv Yeravam ben Nevat, shelo yalu Yisrael l'regel. So I will say, unfortunately, where did the Goyim learn from? They learned from us, because Yeravam ben Nevat, right, the first king over the split kingdom, posted sentries along the road, preventing the Jews of his kingdom from being Ola Regel. He wanted to consolidate his monarchy. So, unfortunately, again, the Goyim, the Gentile monarchy, gleaned this idea from us. We did it to ourselves. They did it to us also, posting sentries to prevent us from being Ola Regel. We'll say, watch this, get ready. This is incredible. Says the Gemara, Ma asu ksherin sheba osadar v'yirachet. What did the ksherin? We'll say, what did the ksherin do? Right? And we'll say, no, it's interesting. What's a kosher? What's the definition of a kosher? A kosher is someone who, even when something is difficult, will still try to accomplish. We'll say, the unfortunate reality of human nature is that most times when something becomes too difficult, what do we do? We just let it go. And we'll say, the mark of an Adam kosher is that even when something becomes difficult, he perseveres. So what did the ksherim do? Most people just gave up. There are sentries on the road, forget about it. What did the ksherim do? Rabbi said, this is so beautiful. Heviu sale bikurim v'chibon b'ktzios. They brought a basket of bikurim, but they covered the basket with figs. V'notlum, they took them. V'al yaksef, and they put a pestle on their shoulder. When they came to the sentries said, where are you going? They said, oh no, we're just going to press figs. Right here are the figs, right here's the pestle, there's a mortar over there, we're just going to press figs, don't worry about us. And what happened? Once they got past the sentries, they removed the layer of figs, they revealed ultimately again the bikurim, itchrum besalim, they decorated the beautiful baskets, and they brought bikurim. And we'll say that's a kosher, that's an Adam kosher. An Adam kosher is that even when something looks difficult, he doesn't throw in the towel, but instead he tries to figure out, how can I make it happen? We'll say all too often when something becomes difficult, we use it as an excuse to absent ourselves from the process. And that's how most people act. But each of us strives to be an Adam kosher. And an Adam kosher, even when he sees a sentry on the road, even when he finds a roadblock, he's going to find a way to get past it. Incredible. So I will say, that's Bnei Gon Ve'eli. These people were called the sons of the pestle thieves. Why are they called thieves? Because they kind of like stole their way past the centuries, right? It was like Genevas Das. They stole their way past the centuries. They're both saying incredible. Tana, Henein Bnei Salmai. Hanatufti. These are also the sons of Salamai the Natufti. We'll come back to them in just a moment. Tanra Abanan, Mahim b'nei Salamai Natufti. You'll say, what happened with the sons of Salamai Natufti? Listen to this. Amru Pam Akas Gazra Malchus Gzera Ali Soshaloyavi Itzlamaracha. One time, the Gentile government decreed you can't bring wood. Now, both say, that is a genius decree. Why is that a genius decree? Because that's all you have to do. Just tell people we can't bring wood. If you can't bring wood, then what? Then what? Nothing happens, right? No karbanos, no ketores, nothing. Nothing happens. So the easiest way to shut down the mikdash is a wood embargo, right? No wood. So we'll say, get ready for this. This is incredible. And again, they put sentries on the road. The boss say, here it doesn't call them ksherim. It calls them yirei. Now, both say, what did the yirei do? We'll talk about this in just a moment. What did the yirei, those who fear sin, what did they do? Shebo sadar. Hey, this is incredible. Heviu gizrayan va'asusam. So only Jews. So we'll say, what did they do? They took pieces of wood. And what did they do with pieces of wood? They made ladders. Va'asusulamos v'niucha kasi. And they put the ladders on their shoulders. V'holchulahem. When they came to the sentries, where the sentry said, where are you going? Lahavi goes los and said, oh, us, don't worry. We're just going to retrieve doves from our dove coats. Vaharaya, here are our ladders. Here are the ladders. Shabbos said, listen to this. Once they passed the centuries, Pirkum, Ve'evium, Vahalum Yushaim. So what did they do once they passed the centuries? They disassembled the ladders, and suddenly what do you have? Wood. Incredible. Ve'halum Yerushalayim, they brought the wood to Yerushalayim. Va'aleim, Va'alkiyotze be'em hu omer. And about these type of people, we say, Zecher Tzadik Livracha. That the Tzadik is remembered for blessing. Va'al Yerav ben Nevat v'chaverav. And unfortunately about Yerav ben Nevat and his cronies, ultimately again, V'shem Rishaim Yirkov. The name of the wicked should rot. So I'll just point out something very interesting. In the first story, they call the guys B'nei Gon ve'eli ksherim. In this story, they call them yirei. Now, I will say it's interesting. Why are the guys of the ladder? Why are the guys of the ladder story? Why are they called yirei? Right? Why are they called yirei? So I will say. So I'll just point out over. And by the way, these are the individuals in the Mishnah who refer to. Yeah. So good. So I will say. So why are they? So these. I'm sorry. So these are the individuals who are, these individuals are Bnei Samai Hanaftusi. Or excuse me, Hanatufsi. Those are the people who went ahead and smuggled the wood. Why are they called Yirei Chet? So let's take something very quickly. We often translate Chet ultimately as what? As sin. The truth is the Maharal of Prague explains that the real etymology of Chet is not sin. Chet means absence. You see, when I do something wrong, what I really do is I create a void of holiness. That's really the real ramification of chet, is not that I've done something wrong, but I've created an absence, I've created a void that is devoid of holiness, that is devoid of kedusha. So we'll say perhaps what yirei chet means, people who are afraid of losing out on opportunities. You see, people who are afraid, yirei chet means I don't want to create voids of emptiness in my life. I don't want to lose out on the opportunity to fill my life with holiness. I don't want to lose out on the beautiful opportunities. That's what it means to be a yirei chet. To be a yirei chet is a person who fears leading an empty life. That's what chet is. Chet is an emptiness. Chet is a void. Yirei chet are people who are afraid of leading unfulfilled, empty lives. And people who are afraid of leading empty, unfulfilled lives, what do? They seize opportunities. And even if the opportunities are difficult, and even if the opportunities are a bit convoluted, and even if the opportunities are a bit problematic, the yirei chet find a way to seize them. Because Rabbi say the greatest fear in life is not the fear of doing something wrong. We all do stuff wrong. The greatest fear in life is leading an unfulfilling life. Is leading a life that is void of meaning, is leading a life that is void of seizing of opportunity. That's the yirei chet. And therefore, again, it's the yirei chet over here who went ahead and ran after the opportunity to bring wood to the Beis HaMikdash. So I both say we emerge with two incredible things. The definition of a kasher is someone who, even when something becomes difficult, ultimately goes forward. The definition of a yahrzeit is someone who is not going to let the opportunities of life pass by. And the Gemara says, if you find the strength to be a kasher, and you find the strength to be a yahrzeit, I'm afraid of losing my opportunities. Therefore, again, I grab my opportunities. You go ahead and you live a life of a kasher yahrzeit. What does Chazal say about you? Zecher tzadik livracha. Zecher tzadik livracha. Both say, we should all be zocha. We should be zocha to be ksherin, to be the kind of people who, even when things become difficult, we persevere, we move forward. And we should become yahrzeit, the kind of people who are scared of leading unfulfilling lives, unfulfilled lives. And therefore, we seize our opportunities even when they are difficult. It's incredible. It's incredible. Good. We're going to switch to Amud Yomi. Emir Hashem starting next week. Says, let's go right there. Bes Shimbo b'nei Pachas Moav ben Yehuda. Tana. So we'll say this is just going through the names in the Mishnah. So Tana, b'nei Pachas Moav ben Yehuda, Hein b'nei David ben Yehuda. Pachas ben Yehuda is the same thing, right? Pachas Moav ben Yehuda is the same family as b'nei David ben Yehuda. Div Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yossi Omer no, he says Hein b'nei Yoav ben Tzvi. He says no. B'nei Pachas Moav ben Yehuda is the same thing as b'nei Yoav ben Tzruya. So all the Gemara has, there may be some identical names over here. Be'esrim be'elul b'nei Adin ben Yehuda. The 20th of Elul were the sons of Adin ben Yehuda. Tanra Abana b'nei Adin ben Yehuda. Hein b'nei David ben Yehuda. So what's another braysa? B'nei Adin ben Yehuda. It's the same family as b'nei David ben Yehuda. Div Rabbi Yehuda. This was Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi says Hein b'nei Yoav ben Tzruya. Okay. Be'echad b'teves shavu b'nei Parush shnia. Both saying the first of Teves. Remember again, first of Teves was a major day. Why? Carbon Eitzim, right? Carbon Eitzim, Carbon Musaf, and Halal. Because remember again, Rosh Chodesh Teves is what? Chanukah. So that is like the most supercharged day. So the Gemara says, Mani Masnisin, who is the Mishnah? So Lore Meir v'lo Rabbi Huda. Why? It's not Rabbi Huda, it's not Rabbi Meir or Rabbi Huda. Why? V'lo Rabbi Yossi. I Rabbi Meir, listni shavu b'nei David ben Yehuda. Because if it's Rabbi Meir, he'll say that really it's b'nei David ben Yehuda. Shnia, second time. I Rabbi Huda, listni shavu b'nei David ben Yehuda. Shnia. I Rabbi Yossi, shavu b'nei Yoav ben Tzruya. Shnia. Both say again, it's just going back and linking back to the fact that according to these different opinions, the names are repetitive. Leola Rabbi Yossi, release Rabbi Yossi, utrei Tanoi alibid Rabbi Yossi. And there are two different Tanoim in the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. Beautiful. Pechar b'teves lahaya maimed. But in the first of Teves, there was no maimed. Why is there, again, as we just said, why is there no maimed on the first of Teves? Because remember again, Carbon Eitzim, Chanukah, Halal, and ultimately Carbon Musaf of Rosh Chodesh. Only Marka Shisha Beid Rav Chisda Rav Ashi. So Marka Shisha son of Rav Chisda Rav Ashi. Maishna Halal did Dachi Didei, or Maishna Musaf did Lo Dachi Didei. But say, watch this. This is fascinating. Why is it that on any day when there's Halal, right? Halal cancels the Maimud of Shachris. Right? Whenever there's just the stam halal cancels the maimid of shachris. So why is it that halal cancels its own maimid? Umayshna musaf delo dachi didei. Now, I will say, interestingly enough, the Mishnah said that when there's musaf, what happens musaf? When there's a day when there's musaf, there's no maimid when? By mincha. So why is that doesn't make sense. When there's halal, which is recited during shachris, halal cancels the maimid of shachris. Yet the Mishnah said that when there is musaf cancels the maimid of mincha, but doesn't seem to cancel what? The maimid of musaf. Amr Rashi, hashda delav didei dachi. I took it for granted. that if the presence of musaf goes in and cancels the maimid of mincha, it certainly cancels the maimid of what? Of musaf as well. Coming up. This is what I mean to say. Lo litchi ella lidide. What I mean to say is like this. Why does musaf have an impact on the maimid of mincha? Rabbi, remember again, just to clarify, what are we talking about over here? We've established that essentially there's a maimid during shachris, during musaf, during mincha, during Eilah, right? What does it mean that there's a maimid? What does it mean that there's a maimid during shachris and musaf? What does that mean? Kriyas HaTorah, right? We're davening, we're laning, there's a service. So now what the Mishnah established is, any day where there's halal cancels the maimid of shachris. And we just said before that where there's musaf cancels the maimid of mincha. To which one says, I don't understand. Why does musaf have an impact on the maimid of mincha? Let musaf have an impact on what? On the maimid of musaf. On the maimid of musaf. Amalei Ika Rabbi Yossi Dekai Kavasech. You're right, you're affecting Rabbi Yossi. What does Rabbi Yossi say? This sign Rabbi Yossi Omer, Kol Yom Sheyesh Bo Musav, Yesh Bo Maimid. Rabbi Yossi said, any day where there is Musaf, there will also be a Maimid. Maimid Demai. Which Maimid are we talking about? Ilema Maimid de Shachris. If you want to say it's the Maimid of Shachris, so that's obvious. Ha Tanakama Nami Hachi Kamar. Tanakama also holds that there's a Maimid of Shachris. Ella Maimid de Musaf. Rather, you have to say, maybe Rabbi Yossi is saying is, any day where there is Musaf, there will be a Maimid during Musaf. So the Gemara says, Didei Nami Lo Dachi. Is that true? That where there's Musaf, there's going to be a Maimid by Musaf? Doesn't it make sense to say that Musaf ultimately again should cancel the Maimid of Musaf? Ela de Mincha. But rather again, you have to say that ultimately again, any day where there's Musaf, Musaf will cancel the Maimid of Mincha. To which the Gemara says, what about carbon 8 Dachi? Does carbon 8 go ahead and push off the Maimid of Mincha? Elalav dini'ila. Rather, it has to be talking about a delay of the Maimid of Ni'ila. Shmamine, what do we see from here? Didei dachi, delav didei lo dachi, shmamina. Rather, Rabbi say, what you have to more appropriately say is as follows. That halacha l'maisa, whenever there is something unique happening, that unique aspect cancels the Maimid which it corresponds to. Right? Rabbi say, it's very simple. What it means is, for example, halal. When do you say halal? Not a trick question. When do you say halal? Shachris. Therefore, again, halal will cancel which Maimid? Right? Shachris. On the day when you say musaf will cancel which Maimid? Musaf. The exceptions might be things like carbon 8sim and things like that. So the Gemara says, I velisne nami be'acha benisan lo haya bo maimin b'mnei sheyesh bo halal v'carbon musaf v'carbon 8sim. Shabbosai, remember again. So therefore, what comes out from the Gemara over here is any special occasion will cancel the maimid corresponding to that special occasion. So if you're saying halal will ultimately cancel the maimid of shachris. You have musaf ultimately again will cancel the maimid of musaf. Now there is an exception. What's the exception? The exception is Rosh Chodesh Teves. Because what happens on Rosh Chodesh Teves? That you have a confluence of events. What do you have on Rosh Chodesh Teves? Let's go through this. Number one, halal because it's Chanukah. Number two, carbon musaf because it's Rosh Chodesh. And number three, what else do you have? Carbon 8sim. So on a day like that, where you have halal, musaf, carbon 8sim, that'll cancel the maimid for the entire day. Now I both say, the Mishnah makes it sound like the only day like that where the entire maimid is cancelled is Rosh Chodesh Teves. The Gemara says, what about? Why don't we say also the first of Nisan? Because what's what happens on the first of Nisan? You have halal. Why do you have halal on the first of Nisan? Why? Rosh Chodesh. Carbon Musaf. Why carbon Musaf? Rosh Chodesh. And carbon 8sim. Rosh Chodesh Nisan was also one of the days for carbon 8sim. So Rabosai, why don't we say Rosh Chodesh Nisan should be just like Rosh Chodesh Teves? And just like on Rosh Chodesh Teves, you have Chanukah, right? Halal, Rosh Chodesh, carbon Musaf, carbon 8sim, and therefore no maimid. Rosh Chodesh Nisan should be the same thing. I've got halal, Rosh Chodesh, I've got carbon Musaf, Rosh Chodesh, and I've got a carbon 8sim. Amarav both said, this is incredible. Amarava, Zos Omeres, Halela de Beresh Yarcha Lav Da'oraisa. I'll tell you why it's not the same. Because I both say, the halal of Rosh Chodesh Teves is the halal associated with what? With what? Chanukah. The halal of Rosh Chodesh Nisan is the halal of Rosh Chodesh. Halal of Rosh Chodesh is not a biblical halal. It's not a biblical halal. I will say, watch this. There are 18 days throughout the year where an individual recites a complete halal. What are the 18 days? Here we go. So what are they? 8 days of Sukkot. They both say there aren't 8 days of Sukkot. There are really 7 days of Sukkot. And what? Shmini Atzeres. But we're counting it as 8 days of Sukkot. Shmona Semei Achag. Shmona Semei Chanukah. 8 days of Chanukah. Yom Tov Arishon Shal Pesach. First day of Pesach. Yom Tov Shal Atzeres. Shavuos. So I will say, so these are the 18 days in which we finish halal. Which I will say, these are the 18 days in which halal is what we call da'oraisa. And I will say, I know what you're thinking. How could halal be da'oraisa by Chanukah? Chanukah in Rabbanah Chasateh. Remember again, what it means is like this. There is a da'oraisa obligation to recite halal for any situation of complete deliverance. Chanukah, even though it is a rabbinic Yom Tov, is amazing, satisfies the biblical criteria. Shabbos says, isn't that incredible? So there is a mitzvah d'oraisa to recite Hallel on Chanukah, which is a Yom Tov d'Rabbanan. Mind-blowing, no? Incredible. In any event, we'll be alright. Shabbos, and the Gemara says, Ubegola, and in Galus you have additional days. Esher ve'echer, instead of 18 days, it's 21 days. Right? Because remember again, it's the same days. It's just we have extra days of Yom Tov. V'eluhein, Tisha Simei Chag. Rabbi said we don't have 8 days of Sukkot, we have 9 days of Sukkot. Shmona Simei Chanukah, same 8 days of Chanukah. Shnei Yom Rishon Shal Pesach, we don't have 1 day of Pesach, but rather 2 days of first days of Pesach. Ubeis Yom Tov Shal Atzeres, and 2 days of Shavuos. So it's the same days, but the 18 become 21. Shabbos says, so what do you see from here? What's missing from this list? Shabbos says, what's missing from the list? What's it? Rosh Chodesh. There is no din of halal by Rosh Chodesh. The din of halal is only a halal of deliverance, which only applies on days of deliverance / days of biblical Yom Tov. Because Shavuos, technically speaking, is not a day of deliverance, but it's a day of biblical Yom Tov, therefore you say halal. So I will say, watch this story. Rav went to Bavel. Chazinu to Kakari Halil B'Reish Yarcha. He saw they were reading halal on Rosh Chodesh. Savar Sikinu. He wanted to stop them. He thought they were doing something wrong. Rav said, do you hear this? Rav said, halal on Rosh Chodesh. Who says halal on Rosh Chodesh? That's ridiculous. He wanted to stop them. Listen to this. Once he saw that they weren't saying a complete halal, they were only saying partial halal. Amar shma mina minag avoseim biadehem. He said, this is a minag. Right? It's not a regular halal, it's just a minhag dekal, it's a customary halal. V'haraya, they're not saying the whole halal. Therefore, halacha l'maaseh, he didn't stop them. Tana, yochid lo yaschil, an individual should not go ahead and say halal. Right, should not really say halal on Rosh Chodesh. Vim hischel gomer, but if he started, he could finish. Shabbosai, this is incredible because the way that the halacha ends off ultimately again is by telling us that halacha l'maisa, there is biblical halal, and biblical halal is when? Biblical halal is on days of deliverance / biblical Yomim Tovim, the 18 / 21 days we just read. There is no such concept of halal on Rosh Chodesh. Halal on Rosh Chodesh, says the Gemara, is a minhag. Rabbi say, so just let's close the loop very quickly. So remember again. So why is this important for us? Because that's why there's only one day where the entire Ma'amad service is canceled. What's the only one day where that happens? Only one day? Rosh Chodesh Teves. Why? Because what do you have on Rosh Chodesh Teves? You have halal. But what kind of halal? Halal is what? Halal of Chanukah, which is biblical halal. Karban Musaf associated with what? Rosh Chodesh and Karban Eitzim. But let's see, for example, Rosh Chodesh Nisan, which also has Halal, Karban Musaf, and Karban Eitzim. You don't cancel the entire Maimad. Why not? Because the Halal of Rosh Chodesh Nisan, Abba say, is what? Is a minhag. And Abba say, this is how the Shulchan Aruch paskins in Siman Tav Chuf Beis Sid Beis. Very quickly, listen to this. The Korim Halal Bedilog. On Rosh Chodesh, this is why we only say a partial halal. We skip pieces of halal. Bein biyachid, bein mitzibor. We only go ahead and say a partial halal. So I will say, why is that? The Shulchan Aruch says, ultimately again, because ultimately again, it's only a minhag on Rosh Chodesh. Listen to this. V'yesh omrim. Shatzibor mevarchen alav betchil likra sahalal. So this the Gemara says, "Ulabasov yalucha v'yesh omim sha'af hatzibor ein mevarchen alav lo betchila v'lo basov v'zed asarabam v'chei noagim b'chol erzov sisarbosei." The Shulchan Aruch paskins like the Rambam that there is only a minhag to read halal Rosh Chodesh, and for the Mechaber paskins, you don't say a bracha on halal by Rosh Chodesh, which is in fact how the Sfardim paskin. Right? Sfardim do not make a bracha on halal on Rosh Chodesh because halacha lemaisa, it is only a minhag. The Ramah comes along and says no. V'yish omim degam yochid mevarich alav v'chei noagin b'medinos elu. The Ramah says, no, our minhag Ashkenaz is, we go ahead and we make a bracha, even Harabosei. I just want to point out, so first of all, fascinating machlokes. So I just want to point out, everyone is agreeing that halal on Rosh Chodesh is a minhag. The proof to that is we don't say a complete halal. The machlokes is then, do you make a bracha on that halal, not make a bracha on that halal? The Mechaber Paskins, we don't make a bracha on that halal because we don't make a bracha on minhagim. On minhagim. The Ramah disagrees. And the Ramah says, we do make brachos on minhagim. Now, where do you see that you make a bracha on minhagim? This is incredible. Where do you see you make a bracha on minhagim? Get ready for this. The Sharatzion says, I'll tell you make a bracha on minhagim. Greatest bracha on minhagim we make? Yom Tov Sheni. We make brachos on Yom Tov Sheni. I will say, why do we keep Yom Tov Sheni? What does the Gemara say? Minhag avosinu biadenu. So the Ramah says, don't tell me that we don't make brachas on minhagim. We make a whole slew of brachas on minhagim. So if you can make all of the brachas on Yom Tov Sheni, Kiddush, Shmona Esrei, everything else, then of course you can make a bracha on halal on Rosh Chodesh. So I will say, but bottom line, everyone agrees that halal on Rosh Chodesh is a minhag. V'haraya, it's an incomplete halal. Sfardim won't make a bracha. Ashkenazim won't make a bracha. Shkayach, I will say.